Good afternoon, Scott Redler, T3 Live. Welcome to today's recap. So the start of the day was pretty weak, after some divergent mixed signals going into the end of the day Friday, in front of a long holiday weekend. So I know those on the VTF or even in the Twitter sphere, I sent out a little tweet saying I'm going risk down on Friday with a lot less positions just because it doesn't feel somewhat right. You had the real weakness in the transports, some high beta names a little wishy-washy. But it just sometimes as a trader you get a little bit of a gut feel when things don't feel exactly right. And even if you didn't, at least today, you had some clues and you had some levels in front of you. And we talked about the upper level. We opened right below it and you had a little bit of time to get out of the way. And now the question is, what's next? Some of the stronger groups broke active upper support. Obviously, some of the weaker groups are like well below the 200-day. And then you have these intermediate, or just like the things that have been acting better, trying to hold the intermediate area. So there's a lot of different time frames going on here. So you have to figure out where you want to live and how you want to operate. You look here at a chart of the spiders. Overall, here was the support. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, it broke above it. Okay, and then today you had a real quick time frame to say, okay, let me get out of the way when it went below this 212.51 and stayed below it. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, just so you understand the way I type and just my terminology, I talked about, I said if sellers have control, today they don't let the bulls reclaim this 212.50. One, because it was the 8-day, two, because it was a prior breakout. So when that broke, you had to be quick. And these false moves are fast moves. So that's why this is considered now a false move, and now we'll see what's next. Overall, though, that's your active spot. You want to go draw a line here. Some have been drawing it from this gap. It's still above this trend line, okay, which comes all the way down here. And then if you, drew your trend line from here, it's not the easiest thing to draw. We're still above all of these intermediate areas. And, some would have thought, that with this little move, we might be able to see the 50-day, and the 50 days right there. So in your process, if you reduce risk when you break the 8-day and break the 21-day, then you should be back into wait and see mode, see if we hold this trend line or not, see if we get some type of red dog reversal tomorrow around today's low, which is 210.20, and that's where we go from here. Okay. On the weaker side, let's go with that first. You have the IYT, which is what everyone's been talking about. It's been the big story. Some people don't know exactly why. I guess we'll find out at some point. This is when it broke the 8 and 21-day right there. And then here is when it broke the 200-day moving average, couldn't reclaim it, and there's your downside follow-through. Weaker. You should not be in the transports. Maybe you try a little day trade for an active scalp, because it's oversold. But bottom line is, this downtrend's in control, and this was your extra area to get out of the way. In the morning call, I went over the airlines, and I was like, if United Airlines, one of the better airlines, is below the 200-day, perhaps be careful with Delta, that's just getting below it, and then the leader, we'll see what JetBlue does. And with oil really weak, they should have had some kind of bounce, and they didn't. And even American Airlines had a positive write-up in Barron's, and it didn't really bounce. So you go to UAL first. Okay, obviously there was lots of things you could have seen here. This was when one trend kind of broke right there, when it broke the moving averages, broke below the 8 and 21-day. Here is when it looked like it had a chance, but then on that outside day, you were out of the way. And then if you didn't get out there, you get out of the way when it breaks the 200-day, and now all of a sudden more downside follow-through. So tomorrow you'll see if there's some kind of red dog reversal around 51.68 or not. I tried it on this day, and now I'll wait and try it again. That's all you could do with these things. And Delta, is following alongside. So if you were, trading it versus the 200-day, watching the action in UAL, you better have said, okay, let me get out of the way when it broke the 200-day because, if United can't hold it, why would Delta hold it? I know they're not all the same. And then even AAL, it's below the 200-day, got a positive write-up, couldn't even bounce today. So let's see what JetBlue did today. JetBlue, wow, there you go. So you had some signals. We talked about this, rising channel here that got broken, and here was your downside follow-through. Some guys probably made money shorting this to play catch-up. Here was your sell this strength, and this is when the 8-day broke, and here's when your 21-day broke. So if you've been riding this trend, you got out of the way right here, and then you don't have to worry about this. then you might even be able to try it here or try it below, depending on where it goes. But you definitely should, in my humble opinion, definitely should, I don't know if it's redundant, you get out of the way if you're an active trader when you break the 8 and 21 day. Maybe even look to get short. Okay, and then one of the positions I did have when I came in was Apple. Apple's been acting well. We've talked about when it broke above 127.60. So it started green today. So I always sell a little bit when something's green, and then I sell a little bit more when it goes red, and then I wait to see what happens next. And when Apple took out the prior low here, okay, which was Friday's low, if you're an active trader like I am, that is a sell signal. So that's when I sold the rest of it. So I was at Apple somewhere around 130, 150. But the majority of it when it went from green to red, because that shouldn't have happened. And then this is when it broke below 130, 140. And now, I don't think it's game over for Apple, but this is a potent day, which you take notice and you could always reevaluate. Here's where it broke out from, okay, 127.60. And then this is where the moving averages are. So I'll figure maybe tomorrow I could be cute and rebuy it back here. But if this doesn't hold, chances are you're going to see some more weakness in tech. At this point, everyone's trying to figure out what the news was on Apple, why it was down. I don't know of any news. It just had a big move from here all the way up back to highs where, usually you do see some kind of resistance, and that's what it did. And then you have an overall weak market. Maybe some people need liquidity, and there goes, Apple. So we'll see, what's next there. As of right now, coming in flat Apple. If it opens up, some people might try and short it to trade through today's low. If it opens down, maybe it goes from red to green, and I'd rather trade it that way than sit in it. I sat in it pretty much since this day. So not a bad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-day swing trade long, and I've also traded around it, adding tiers. So this got me out. This also, you talk about trends. Here is somewhat of an ascending channel here that got resolved to the downside. So now I have to wait and see what's next. And what's next is this could hold or not. Amazon, some people have been trying to buy the dip. And today was definitely not easy. It came off the lows. It's still above the gap, but these things have been a little harder. When the market wants to pull in, people don't know if momentum names could hold up. And it's still kind of trapped in this upper range. A little bit off the lows. Here's our new point of reference. We'll see what the story is there tomorrow. Netflix, red day. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but if you tried buying it today, it probably hurt a little bit. I don't like buying these things when they're away from the 8-day. Usually when it touches it, you get some kind of reversal here if it's still strong. That's what happened here. That's what happened there. At this point, still has a little bit of room, especially if the market gets a little bit more pressured. But we'll see. The IBBs, not the end of the world here either. But, again, when things start to get sold a bit, they tend to come after a lot. So if this were to break this little channel here, chances are, it could get a little bit pressured or discounted, or this little ascending channel could go to the downside. So it's good when it rides it to the upside, but you want to be, careful just in case. And this, kind of came back to the highs. This is almost similar to Apple, where, it looked good, and then you had some ways around it if you trade actively. And now we'll see what's next here. IWM, which has also been a little stronger lately. Did come off the lows, so you'll see if what that means. Okay, this is gave you that short setup when it broke the ascending channel here with that outside day, and then it regrouped right here, gave you a trade to the long side, and then started getting a little wishy-washy. I was actually long the IWM in here, and I think on this day I was like, I'm gonna wait. Thank goodness, and now we'll see what happens. Your new point of reference is 122.52. So we'll see what goes on there. Tesla actually going back to high beta, started strong, but then had a tail. I don't know, sometimes Tesla likes to squeeze the leftover shorts, and when it tails like this, you got to be careful. It did show relative strength on the day, but overall, it's had a really nice move. So I guess if you're in it, this is your real stop here around 241. You'll see if it can go sideways and continue. These moves that happen, with all these little base on base moves, as you get higher, it gets a little bit harder to hold up. But if the market's going to, blow off this day and say this day didn't happen, this will probably be fine. If all of a sudden today's weakness overall in the market leads into weakness for a few more sessions, then you could kind of draw this trend line here. And if this channel that it's been riding breaks, or at least right here, you want to see if it could hold the 21-day like it did on earnings day. That's what's been the trend, the 8 and the 21-day. So at this point, it still looks fine. SHAK, thank you for all your your, I guess, nice tweets to me, because I did say on Friday, do not chase SHAK. I was like, if you didn't buy the pivot here, which is the reason why it's a pivot to trade over the IPO high, or you didn't trade it here when it regrouped, with the 8-day, and then the last, tradable real pivot was here, I would not be chasing it up there. Some of us actually got shorted. Fortunately, I didn't hold my short into today. It would have been a lot better money instead of just what happened on Friday. But overall, now you'll see what's next. It probably needs some time. See, it held above the 8-day. It's going to be choppy. Your day and a half calculated short was like this, and now it'll be, it'll need some noise or need some time. I don't think you need to be so, overly trading that one. TLT, I talked about this descending channel here. I think that was the last chart that I put on, saying maybe it tries to, retrace. And at this point, here it broke above this 119.60, and now it's coming back to the 200-day, and we'll see what happens here at the 200-day, whether it reclaims it or gets rejected by it. You had to, sell signal up here, sell signal when it broke this mid-level channel. So down here, if you had the opportunity to, maybe try and buy the dip because you thought that the news wasn't so great that rates probably aren't going up, you played a little bit of a bounce. But now you'll see if the 200-day rejects it or if it gets reclaimed there. Overall, though, today, somewhat of a surprise. I can't say it was a full surprise, with the lethargic action that we've seen in last week, and with some of the action in the transports and in some of the other sectors. There were some clues to keep some, risk down, not maybe be out of everything. Oh, some guys were asking me about BABA. BABA actually held in pretty well today, for BABA. We'll see if this setup, continues to hold higher where we can get another trade. This gave us some nice action last week. Then it held and went sideways, and boom. Now if it could continue to hold the 8-day and go sideways, maybe there's another trade. We'll see how it opens tomorrow. Facebook actually, kind of lost some momentum today. It doesn't mean it's game over. Just, didn't have the juice to get above this, and, went below last week's pivot. So now tomorrow we'll see what happens if we open up or down. This is 79.08. There can't be, I guess, its own little island here in social media. This was your reversal after earnings that got you out of it and got you tactical. Had a decent trade in here, but now it's just turning into a choppy mess. So there's a lot of choppy messes out there. And I know, I pretty much was flattish at 9:45, and everyone's like, you're going to buy the dip, you're going to buy the dip. And I'm like, in days like today, I'm just going to play defense. First down day, potentially breakout failure. I'm going to wait. Because if there's day 2, day 3, I know I'm going to start too early, I'm not going to hold. Doesn't also mean that I'm going to go balls to the wall short. I did short a rally, and I shorted the rally at the end of the day, so I am short spiders overnight. So we'll see, what happens tomorrow. At this point, it's again not game over for the S&P at any stage. Let's see. You can't even really draw a trend here. If you draw a trend from here, it's still above that. If you draw a trend maybe from here, it kind of broke the upper area. But really, the main thing you could have looked at is this breakout failure there. Last time you had a breakout failure right here, okay, it produced a pretty big decline, right? Then you had another false breakout here where it didn't get any traction and it rolled over. So maybe this, maybe this false breakout gives you a list to move down to here. So we'll see. And that's it. You want to be light, you want to be flexible, and what I will say is just, take compelling trades. Do not trade the noise. There's such a lack of volume in all of these names, and just trade where the action is. Trade what's on your game plan. Don't be jumping around. I know there are some little, biotech stocks that jump up with volume filters. If you get that early, those have somewhat been working. I think some guys were looking at the CBLI today, just as a case in point. This kind of thing could happen, where you get a big percentage move on volume, and it's come up from a lot, so who knows. But I'm just saying, these type of things over the summer tend to work if you get them early. But then if they're not, if they don't continue, you can get left holding the bag. Remember that ISR, it had a big move. If you didn't get out of it, that can happen. So make sure you know what you're trading with or what you're playing with, because you could be playing with fire if you think that all of a sudden, this move could lead into something huge. Okay, if you didn't get out quick enough, a huge decline is what it could lead to. So just remember that there are risks in those little bios, and typically, when you get close to some kind of correction, you have little guys going nuts and speculation rampant on those, which keeps the traders busy, and we saw a little bit of that the last week or two. So that's what has me a little risk off, and I'm actually net short overnight. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see if the sellers could keep half of today's move tomorrow if we open up, and if we open down, we'll see if the 50-day holds, and we'll continue to go from there. So just keep doing what you're doing. If you're not having success, I guess change what you're doing. But all in all, today was somewhat of a shot across the bow. They haven't led to much, at least in the S&P. So we'll see what this leads to, if something more. And again, if you trade actively, just cash is a position. Less is sometimes better, and no reason to push the envelope if we're in a spot that is a little indecisive. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.